your kingdom here, let the darkness.
Hey guys, so this week we're going to look at two common criticisms that people throw in your face about the Bible and the Christian faith. One is that all truth is relative, and another is that there are errors and contradictions in the Bible. But only one of these is partially true, and that's that there are errors in the Bible. And I know that's shocking to some of you, but these errors are just errors in copying. These errors don't change the meaning in any way, and I'm going to show you that in more detail in a few minutes. But why were there errors, you might ask? Because you can print out an English paper and print out 10,000 copies, and they're all going to be exactly the same, unless the printer fails or you get hacked. And the Bible was not written today. It was written in 400 BC for the Old Testament, in the 1st century AD for the New Testament, and the printing press was invented in the 15th century. So you can see, like, they had to copy these by hand, and that makes sense, right? So next week, Dennis is going to show you how amazing it is that God preserved the copies that we do have, and that we can be confident that we hold a good copy. But let's see what they mean when they say there's Old Testament errors in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. But we're going to look at the Old Testament today. First is copying something twice that should have only been copied once. Ezekiel 48:16, it gives us the measurements of a building, and it says they're giving 4 sides, and it says 4,500 4 times when we read in the English. But in the Hebrew, one of these times it says 5 500s and 4,000s. So this would be 6,500 or something doesn't make sense. So we just accept that it's 4,500. They take out the other 5. They obviously wrote 5 twice. This doesn't change the meaning in any way. I hope you can see that. Another type of error is that there's the same beginning and a different ending. And this is in Genesis 31:18. We see it says, "And he drove away all his livestock and all his property, which he had gathered, his acquired livestock, which he had gathered, in Paddan Aram, to go to the land of Canaan, to his father Isaac." Guys, this is just a little awkward. Why does it say which he had gathered twice? Probably because they were writing, they looked up, and they found a different place, and they wrote it again. This is just a little awkward. It doesn't change the meaning in any way. And here's the last error we're going to look into. It's an error of omission. 1 Samuel 13:1 says, Saul lived for 1 year and then became king. He lived for 1 year. The NASB says he lived for 30 years, because we know that from other places in the Bible. But the actual best manuscript we have says he lived for year, which doesn't make any sense. So the ESV adds 1, and the NASB adds 30. And 30 is the correct age, because he didn't become king when he was 1 year old. That doesn't make any sense at all. But this doesn't affect anything we do. How does that affect your life today? It doesn't affect it at all. But is this a big deal? How do we know that they're not trying to deceive us? The best scholars that we have say that if we adopted all the variations in the Bible, the meaning would not be changed. So if I asked you to copy a 30-page paper by hand and then you gave it to somebody else to copy, they're going to make mistakes. But God preserved his word much better than that, and we have good copies today. Laird Harrison said, "Would we know the length of a yardstick if we didn't have the original measurement? Of course we would. We have so many that go back to when it was first measured, we can be confident that we know what the original measurement was like. So why is it any different for the Bible?" So are we trying to hide this? No, obviously, we're teaching this to you today. I want you to see, so when your professor, when you go to college, or any of your friends say, there's errors in the Bible, you say, "Oh, you mean that?" And then you're like, "Yeah, that doesn't change anything. What do you think?" So what about contradictions? A famous one that people like to throw in your face is Matthew versus Luke's temptation order. Matthew writes, Jesus turned the stones into bread. He was tempted with jumping from the temple, and then with giving him the kingdoms. But in Luke, he reverses the last 2 temptations. But is this really a contradiction? I say no, and I'm going to show you why. First, history is not always recorded chronologically. If you look in your history textbook, they don't put everything that happened in the world in order. They arrange them topically. Otherwise, you'd be confused. You would never be able to understand it. And I'm going to just rant for a second. Here's a fun fact. Plagiarism is a Western concept. In the rest of the world, everything is common. But we are to submit to authority. So don't hear me say that you should plagiarize, because you will be probably fail your class, kicked out of school, depending on where you go. And so we're to submit to authority. The school says don't do it, so we don't do it. And next, the second reason why this is not a contradiction is neither Matthew or Luke claim to report the temptations in order. This difference actually adds to the richness of Luke's text. He's trying to show that Jesus is the true and better Adam. Adam fell when tempted. He was tempted with food, the lust of the eyes, and pride, the same things that Jesus was tested with. But if we look into these claims, we would see that they don't stand up, that Luke did this. Luke gave us in this order because he was showing that Jesus was the true and better Adam. I really want you to get that point, that Jesus was tempted with the exact same things that Adam was, but Adam failed, Jesus triumphed. I don't want you to wrongly conclude that these contradictions, you can't trust the Bible. So we just really want to look into them. There's other ones, but this is the main one that I wanted to talk about today. The last question I'm going to answer today is all truth relative? Because if it is, the Bible doesn't really matter. Some people say, you have your truth, I have my truth. Why don't we all just get along and play with daisies and butterflies? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. But some people say that all religions have different paths. I think it's the Oprah belief that we all can get to heaven with different religions. But this is a very disrespectful belief because none of the religions agree with you. For example, Christianity in John 14:6 says, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. This is very exclusive. This does not say no one comes to the Father except through me and Buddha and Muhammad. It says no one comes to the Father except through me. And other religions have claims just like this. Relativism pervades our society. We have this belief that if everyone makes their own truth, that this just doesn't work. So let's listen to this statement. If everybody makes their own truth, then what if I tell you that my truth is that your truth is wrong? So let me say that again. What if I told you that my truth is that your truth is wrong? This is a self-destructing belief system. This doesn't stand up when tested, and so how can we know the truth? This is really a question of worldview. Truth is best determined within a worldview, the lens with which we see the world. Rabbi Zacharias is much smarter than me. He debates with people all over the world, and he says that a worldview must answer 4 questions: origin, meaning, morality, and destiny. There are 2 tests: coherence and correspondence. Coherence, how does it fit together? And correspondence, does it correspond with reality? So he says that only the Judeo-Christian worldview, which is the worldview of the Bible, can pass these tests and answer these 4 questions. So if you're an atheist, here's a question. Is what ISIL is doing in the Middle East wrong? Everything inside of you wants to say it's wrong, but you have nothing to stand on. If they say it's right for them, which they do, then how can you say it's wrong? This does not cohere. This is everything in you wants to say it's wrong, but you have nothing to stand on. This is not coherent. This does not cohere at all. And for a Muslim, the Quran denies that Jesus died on the cross. No other historical document denies this. This fails the correspondence test because it is historically untrue. So I'm going to conclude with the Christian answers to these 4 questions. Origin, we were created by God. Meaning, we were created to glorify God. Morality, God tells us what to do in the Bible. It does not conflict with our conscience, and he tells us what to do that will please him. And destiny, when we die, we'll go to be with God if we accept Jesus Christ as our Savior, and if we don't, we won't. So our faith is rooted in history. I want you to be confident in your faith, and that when you have questions, look into them. Don't just accept them, because we can answer them, and you can answer them when you look into them. There are answers. So in your small groups, you're going to just go deeper into this and just see what other questions you have, and then go find the answers.
Build your kingdom here, let the darkness fear. Show your mighty hand, heal our streets and land. Set your church on fire, win this nation.